The soldier who shot my beta smelled like my stolen pup. I froze mid-lunge, claws inches from a human guard's throat.
Alpha!
Sparrow, report.
Alpha class hostile engaged. Target down. Moving to secure primary objective. Your name?
Your true name is... She raised her rifle.
Target acquired. The Alpha is contained. You're lying. Wolves don't get to be mothers.
Then take me in.
Luna, what are you doing?
Something I should have done 18 years ago. The cell was concrete and silver. The cuffs burned. I sat against the wall and cataloged the damage. Shoulder wound, healing, but slowly, with the silver in my bloodstream. The door opened. Sparrow stepped inside. No rifle this time. Just a data pad and that flat, empty stare.
Name.
You know my name. Name. Luna Blackhood. Alpha of the Shadow Moon Pack. Date of birth, February 3rd. I'm 38.
Colonel Vance says you've been making claims. About me. About my origins.
Your origins. What did he tell you?
I was found outside Denver base. Age approximately 18 months. No identification, no records. Colonel Vance took me in, raised me, trained me. I owe him everything. Nothing to say?
Your first word. It was moon. You'd sit in the nursery den and point at the skylight. Every night. You wouldn't sleep until you saw it. Your birthmark. Silver, shaped like a crescent, left shoulder blade. It's why I named you what I named you.
That information could have been gathered through surveillance, pack customs, naming conventions. It doesn't prove anything.
It proves you're listening.
Don't talk to me again.
The door slammed. I sat in the concrete quiet and pressed my palm against the floor. The silver cuffles burned, the wound in my shoulder throbbed, and I missed her so badly I couldn't breathe.
Kale, she's alive. She's in here.
I know. I smelled her. The whole pack did.
Colonel Vance visited the next morning. He was tall, gray-head, with the calm, steady presence of a man who had never been told he was wrong. Alpha Blackwood. I apologize for the accommodations. Silver cuffs are a necessary precaution. I understand you've been speaking with Sparrow, making claims.
I've been telling her the truth.
The truth. The truth is that I found an abandoned infant outside a military installation 18 years ago. No family, no pack, nothing but a blanket and a silver birthmark. I gave her a home, an education, a purpose.
You stole her.
From what? A life of running in the woods? Hiding from humans? Fighting over territory like animals?
What do you want, Colonel?
Simple. He stood, brushing dust from his trousers. Renounce your claim. Sign a statement saying you were mistaken, that Sparrow is not your daughter. Renounce your claim. Sign a statement saying you were mistaken, that Sparrow is not your daughter. Do that, and you walk free. Your pack members too.
And if I don't?
Then you stay here, indefinitely. Sparrow is an asset, Alpha. She's happy. She's fulfilled. You can't give her what I can. You never could.
You gave her a cage and called it purpose.
I'll give you 24 hours to consider my offer. On the floor, near the doorframe, I saw it. A single thread, black, from her uniform. I picked it up, held it in my palm.
18 years. I closed my fingers around the thread and pressed it to my chest, right where the ache lived. I'm here, I told her, though she couldn't hear me. I'm right here. The full moon rose on the fourth night. I felt it before I saw it.
Full moon protocols. We keep our assets stable during lunar events. Sparrow will administer the sedative.
Kneel. She grabbed my shoulder, the wounded one, and forced me down. My knees hit concrete. The moon was visible through the small barred window. You are safe. You are loved. Her hand shook. I counted. 1. The injector trembled against my skin. 2. Something ancient moved behind her eyes. Recognition it, without memory. A wolf responding to its mother's call. 3. She depressed the plunger. Cold flooded my veins. My wolf went silent. The moon blurred, then faded. I was falling. Sparrow stood, walked to the door, paused. I don't know what you said, but don't say it again. The door closed. When my eyes opened hours later, the moon was gone. The sedative had thinned, and I was different. Kale. Phase 2. Now.
Luna.
She's in there. And I'm going to tear down everything he built until she has no choice but to come out.
Understood, Alpha.
I pressed my palm to the cold floor. My wolf was quiet, but not gone. Waiting. Like me. He wanted an asset. He wanted a weapon. I would show him what an alpha does to people who steal her pup. The prisoners in the cells around me were mine, 3 warriors captured during a border skirmish 6 months ago. They'd been held here, suppressed, interrogated. They were thin and tired and furious. Report.
Alpha, we thought you were dead.
Not dead. Waiting. Tell me everything you've learned. And they did. In the old tongue, too fast and ancient for human translators to pause. Patrol rotations, camera blind spots, which guards could be bribed or threatened. The layout of the East Corridor. That evening, she stopped outside my cell.
The sedative. The words you said. What did they mean?
You told me not to say them again.
I'm asking now.
The first words I ever spoke to you, the night you were born. Every wolf pup hears them from their alpha. It's a blessing. A promise.
What promise?
That you are safe. That you are loved. That you belong to the pack.
She stared at me. Then she turned and walked away. But she came back the next night, and the night after that. She never stayed long, never said much. She just stood there, outside the glass, watching me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. And I let her. Because every time she came back, she stayed a little longer.
Sparrow, I need to speak with you. Privately.
I have rounds.
This is about your file.
What about it?
I've been with this project for 15 years. I've seen things I was told to ignore. But your file, it doesn't add up. Dates that don't align. Genetic markers that aren't baseline human. Sections that have been redacted without proper authorization.
You're paranoid.
Am I? I pulled the original intake records. The ones from 18 years ago. Before Colonel Vance sanitized them. Do you want to know what they say?
What do they say, Doctor?
That you weren't abandoned. You were acquired. There's a difference.
The door opened, footsteps. Sparrow's voice, cold and fine. If you show this to anyone else, I'll report you for insubordination.
Colonel Vance saved my life. He's the only family I have. Don't talk to me again.
But Wren told me the rest. Sparrow didn't go to Vance. She went to her quarters, and through the thin walls, he heard the soft beep of a terminal powering on.
She's looking. Alpha. She's looking at her own file.
I closed my eyes. Good. That night, Sparrow didn't come to my cell. She stayed in her quarters, scrolling through records, finding nothing but the word redact, where her past should have been. I knew because I felt her through the bond, confused, angry, and for the first time, not of me. Of what she was starting to suspect. Was true. The 8th night, I almost broke. No warning, no trigger I could name. I was sitting against the cell wall, counting the cracks in the concrete, when suddenly I couldn't breathe. I pressed my forehead to the cold wall. My breath came ragged.
3 seconds.
I gave myself 3 seconds.
1.
My daughter was 30 feet away, scrolling through a redacted file, looking for a truth I'd been trying to give her since the moment I caught her scent. 2. She called him family. She called me a monster, and I couldn't even hate her for it, because none of this was her fault. 3. I was so tired. So impossibly tired.
Luna.
I straightened, wiped my face with the back of my hand. My fingers were shaking. I made them stop. When the guard checked the camera feed 30 seconds later, I was sitting cross-eyed, eyes closed, meditating, the picture of alpha composure. The guard noted nothing unusual. I opened my eyes. The gold in them was harder than it had been in years. Then let's begin. Tomorrow, when the Oversight Committee arrives, we end this. The Oversight Committee arrived at 0900.
Welcome to Project Clean Slate. We have significant progress to report.
I waited. Vance stood at the front, gesturing to charts and projections, and Dr. Sparrow was positioned stood in the corner, pale, alert, sweating, a daypad clutched to his chest.
Colonel Vance, I have something the committee needs to see.
Doctor, this is not the time.
I think it is.
Elias tapped his datapad. The main screen flickered, and then the files appeared. Original intake records, 18 years old. A photograph of an infant with a crescent-shaped birthmark on her left shoulder. Beneath it, a single line of text. Acquired, Denver Safe House. Subject is female, approx 3 months. Lyonothrepic markers confirmed. Alpha lineage suspected.
This is a fabrication. A security breach. Pharmaceutical logs. Daily suppresses administered to Subject 7, codename Sparrow, from age 4 to present. Dosages calculated to suppress lyconuric transformation, enhance senses, and pack bonding instincts. Audio recording. Dated 6 years ago.
Vance's voice filled the room. Calm, conversational.
The asset is stable. She'll never know she's one of them. Reciprocate everything. Memory, instinct, the bond to her biological pack. She believes she's human because we've never given her a reason to doubt it.
Colonel Vance, sit down. Vance didn't move. And Sparrow. Sparrow turned to look at him. She didn't speak. Her face was blank. But her hands were trembling. She stared at the man who raised her, and for the first time, he looked afraid. They halted Sparrow's suppresses that afternoon. I felt the change before I saw it. Her wolf was waking up. Within hours, she was different. Her pupils kept swifting, human round, to wolf gold and back again. She flinched at sounds no human could hear. She pressed her palm to walls, as if trying to feel something through the concrete. What am I?
Sparrow, I understand this is confusing, but think. Who has been there for you your whole life? Who trained you, fed you, gave you purpose?
You lied to me.
I protected you. Everything I did was to keep you safe from what you really are.
What am I?
Mine. You're mine. I made you. I saved you from a life of running in the woods with animals. Everything you are, you owe to me.
She didn't go to her quarters. She walked down the corridor, past the guards, past the committee members who watched her with wary eyes. She walked until she stood outside my cell. She didn't open the door. She just stood there, one hand pressed flat against the glass. Her eyes, gold now, fully gold, fixed on me. I rose, crossed to the glass, pressed my palm to the other side, died with hers. We stood like that for a long time, mother and daughter, glass between us.
I don't know what's happening to me.
The next full moon rose on the 14th night. They brought me to the observation room. No cusses this time. The silver had been removed hours ago by a guard who wouldn't meet my eyes. Someone Dr. Elias had spoken to, I guessed. My wolf stirred beneath my skin, testing the boundaries. Not yet. But soon. Off suppresses for 5 days. Her body was changing. I could see it in the way she held herself. Coiled tight, fighting something she didn't understand. Her pupils bled gold. Her hands kept curling into fists, then releasing. The moon cleared the window. Sparrow gasped. Her spine arched. Her fingers lengthened, darkened. Fur, black as mine, black as her birthright, rippled across her arms. No one touches her. She fell to her knees. The transformation took her in waves, bone and muscle and skin reshaping, remaking her into what she'd always been. A wolf. My daughter's wolf. Black fur, gold eyes, the silver-crescent birthmark visible even through the pelt. When it was over, she stood on 4 legs, shaking. Her head swung toward Vance.
Sparrow, it's okay. I'm here.
Then she turned away. The shift back was slower.
When she knelt on the floor again, human-shaped, trembling, naked under a blanket someone draped over her, she looked up.
What is my name? I crossed the room, knelt in front of her. My hands were steady. Arya. Arya Blackwhite. You stole my name. You stole my mother. You made me a weapon against my own blood.
Colonel Vance, you are under arrest for kidnapping, illegal experimentation, and crimes against sentient beings.
They took him away. They gave Vance a cell with no windows. I didn't ask for details. Cale told me anyway. Through the bond.
He received something this morning. A photograph.
What photograph?
You and her. At the edge of the territory.
Dr. Elias took it before we left. Someone sent it to him. He stared at it for 3 hours. Then he wrote a letter. Then he wrote returned, unopened.
I looked at Arya. Her face was peaceful in sleep. Younger. The furrow between her brows finally smoothed. He's not worth her attention. He never was. Arya woke that evening. We were alone. The medical wing was quiet. She sat up slowly, pressing her palm to her forehead.
The dreams won't stop.
What dreams?
Running through trees. I can smell everything: soil, water, prey. And there's someone beside me. I can't see her face, but I know she's... What if I don't know how to be a wolf? What if I don't know how to be your daughter?
Then we learn together.
The things he taught me, the things I did, I can't just erase them.
No. You can't. But you don't have to carry them alone anymore.
The door opened. Kale stepped in, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed one to Arya without comment, like she'd always been Pack. Like she'd always belonged.
What happens now?
We go home.
6 months later, the full moon hung low over the territory. Below the ridge, the pack was running. 20 wolves, black and gray and brown, weaving through the pines. Their howls rose in layers, ancient and joyful. I stood at the edge, watching. Beside me, a black wolf with gold eyes. She was still learning. Some nights she couldn't shift at all. The suppresses had done damage that would take years to fully heal. Some nights she shifted, but got lost in her own head, the old programming fighting the new instincts. Kale worked with her. I worked with her. I worked with her. But mostly, she worked with herself. Tonight, she ran. I watched her move through the trees, fast, precise, deadly. Everything Vale trained her to be, but turned towards something else now. Towards Pack. Toward home. She circled back. Shifted mid-stride, human again, pulling a wrap around her shoulders. She climbed the ridge and stood beside me.
They're loud.
They're celebrating.
What?
You. Your first full run with the pack. They've been waiting. She was quiet for a moment. Then she tipped her head back and howled. Not perfect. A little ragged. Still learning. But the pack answered. 20 voices rising to meet hers, welcoming her into the chorus. I didn't cry. I just breathed. When I opened my eyes, Arya was looking at me. What?
Nothing. I just never thank you.
For what?
For not giving up.
I reached out, touched her shoulder, the one with the silver birthmark. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it, just slightly. Wolves let out intermittent wholes.
I'm home.
2 words.
Quiet.
Permanent. Below us, the pack ran on. The moon was full, and for the first time in 18 years, so was I.